Oh God, what was that? Get out of here!
The night Damien Cross almost died, it was raining so hard the cameras couldn't catch it properly. He had just walked out of the Pinnacle Grand Hotel in downtown Atlanta, fresh off announcing the biggest merger in his company's life, a deal that had made half the room jealous and the other half afraid. His bodyguards cleared the path. Reporters screamed his name. A sleek black SUV idled at the curb, wipers beating slow and steady, exhaust curling into the wet air like something breathing. Damien reached for the door. Then a woman's voice split the night wide open. "Don't get in that car. And if you think you know where this story is going, you don't. Stay with us, because this one goes somewhere nobody expected. Hit that subscribe button right now, because we tell stories like this every week, and you do not want to miss what's coming." Damien Cross was 43 years old and had been the most powerful man in any room he walked into for the last decade. He had built Viridian Technologies from a three-person startup in a rented office into a company worth $47 billion. He had survived hostile takeovers, congressional hearings, 2 divorces, and 1 assassination of his character so thorough it had trended nationally for 11 days. He was not a man who frightened easily. But something about that voice stopped him cold. His head of security, a former Army Ranger named Cole Bishop, was already moving toward the sound, hand drifting toward his jacket. Across the rain-soaked street, pressed against the wall of a parking structure, stood a young woman in a cleaning crew uniform, chest heaving like she had run a very long way, braids plastered flat against her face by the downpour. She wasn't holding a sign. She wasn't chanting anything. She was just staring at Damien with the kind of eyes that didn't have performance left in them. Just raw, stripped-down terror. Cole's men reached her in seconds. One grabbed her arm. She didn't fight it. She just kept her eyes on Damien and said it again, quieter this time but somehow carrying further. "That's not your real driver." 4 seconds of silence except for rain. Damien looked at the SUV. The window was up. His actual driver, a retired cop named Frank Osa who had worked for him 3 years, always cracked his window when he pulled up. Always. It was a small thing, the kind of thing you only notice when it's gone. The window was up. Damien stepped back from the curb. "Cole!" The car exploded. The blast wave picked Damien up and drove him back into the marble facade of the hotel like a hand swatting a fly. Heat. Glass. A sound that wasn't really a sound so much as a physical force that emptied his skull of everything. He hit the ground with his cheek against wet marble and lay there while the ringing swallowed the world. An orange light danced at the edges of his vision, and somewhere above him Cole was saying his name with the specific controlled urgency of a man trained not to panic while panicking. He turned his head. Across the street, through the smoke and the screaming crowd, the woman was already pushing herself up off the pavement. Slowly, unsteadily. She must have been thrown down by the blast like everyone within 30 feet. But she got herself upright, and through all of it, the fire, the chaos, the people running in every direction, she looked across the wreckage to find his face. Making sure he was alive. That was the moment Damien Cross understood that his life had just divided itself into 2 parts. Everything before, and whatever came next. Her name was Zara Mensah. She was 29 years old, and she worked nights cleaning offices in the Viridian building on Peachtree Street, the flagship building of the very company that had just tried to kill its own founder. 3 hours before the explosion, Zara had been on the 14th floor arguing with a mop head that needed replacing. She was 30 minutes ahead of schedule, which was the only reason she took the service elevator down to the underground garage to grab supplies herself. The parking garage at that hour was supposed to be empty. It almost always was. Almost. 2 men stood near a support column in Bay 9, far enough from the cameras that they clearly knew where the cameras were. Zara pressed herself flat against the wall before they could see her heart knocking hard against her ribs. "Everything's confirmed," the first man said. His voice was low and rough, like gravel in a tumbler. "Driver's been handled. Replacement is 2 blocks over, waiting for the call." "Remote detonation?" the second man asked. This one spoke carefully, precisely, like every word had been laundered before it left his mouth. "Half-block range, plenty of clearance." A pause, the sound of a case being closed. "He should have left the Nexus acquisition alone," the first man said. "He didn't," said the second, "so this is what happens." Zara stood with her back against cold concrete and her lungs refusing to fill properly, and thought through every single option available to her in the next 60 seconds. She thought fast, because she had learned a long time ago that the world did not slow down to let people like her catch up. She went to the lobby security desk and told the guard exactly what she had heard, exactly where she had heard it, exactly what it meant. The guard, a man named Phil who she had said good morning to 200 times, looked at her for 45 seconds. "You can file a report, ma'am," he said. "Leave your name and a contact number." "He's leaving in less than an hour. There isn't time to—" "Ma'am," the word used like a door being shut, "our team has Mr. Cross's security handled." She left her name and number and walked to the elevator and stood there for 4 seconds. Then she walked back out into the rain. She ran 6 blocks in work shoes through a downpour, trying 3 different numbers she found online for Veridian's security team, getting voicemail on all of them, and arrived at the Pinnacle Grand just in time to see Damien Cross descending the hotel steps toward a car that was going to kill him. Now 2 hours after the explosion, Zara sat on the back bumper of an ambulance with a foil blanket around her shoulders and a gash on her palm that she still hadn't felt, watching the FBI establish their perimeter. Her phone screen was cracked in the corner. She held it anyway, staring at the photo on her home screen. Her father, James Mensah, standing in front of the Riverside Community Center on the south side of Atlanta, squinting into summer sun, arm around a teenage Zara who was trying to escape the frame. He was 44 years old in that picture. He would not get to be 45. He had died of a heart attack, technically. That was what the death certificate said. Zara had spent 7 years understanding what that meant in practice. It meant a man who had spent 4 years fighting to expose financial corruption tied to one of Atlanta's largest tech companies had instead been buried under legal bills, lost his community center funding, lost his savings, and died with his work unfinished and unacknowledged, while the people responsible faced nothing. The company his paperwork had named, in one document she had found in a box under his bed 2 weeks after the funeral, the company whose mid-level financial officer had allegedly signed off on the fraudulent grant redirection that starved the community center of its operating funds, was a subsidiary of what would eventually become Veridian Technologies, owned at the time of the fraud by the father of Damien Cross. She looked at the burning car. She looked at the living man being moved back into the hotel by his security team. She held her cracked phone and sat with the particular vertigo of someone whose plan has been replaced by something much more complicated and who has not yet decided what to do about it. She had not come here tonight to save Damien Cross. She had come here because of him. Inside the hotel, Damien sat across from 2 FBI agents and gave them everything he had. The Nexus acquisition, the buried financial documents, the anomalies he had flagged in the secondary ledgers 3 months ago, the ones that pointed toward money that had moved in ways money should not move, through accounts that shouldn't have existed, authorized by signatures he had started having nightmares about recognizing. "You believe the attack is connected to the acquisition," the lead agent said. It wasn't a question. "I believe," Damien said carefully, "that someone needs me dead before that deal closes and I own those servers. Whatever is on those servers, it's worth killing for." "Do you have a specific suspect?" Damien was quiet for a moment. In that moment he thought about Marcus, about his business partner of 12 years, his oldest friend in this industry, the man who had called his cell phone at 11:43 tonight and not been at the gala where he was supposed to be. The man who had pushed hardest for the Nexus acquisition 18 months ago. The man who had access to Damien's schedule, his driver's routine, his security rotations, every layer of logistics that would have been required to pull tonight off. "I have a direction," Damien said. The next morning, against the advice of literally every person in his professional life, Damien Cross asked to speak to Zara Mensah. They met in a conference room on the hotel's third floor, Cole stationed outside, no other staff present. Zara came in still wearing her work uniform because she had not gone home. She sat across from him with the particular stillness of someone who has decided in advance not to be impressed, and Damien looked at her the way he looked at financial documents that were telling him something he needed to hear. "You saved my life," he said. "Yes," she said. "And no one listened to you when you tried to go through proper channels." "No. I want to understand what you heard, exactly, every word, every detail." He leaned forward. "And I want to know why you ran 6 blocks in the rain for a man you've never met." Something moved across Zara's face, gone before he could read it fully. "Because nobody deserves to die in a car," she said, "even people I don't know." It wasn't the whole truth. Damien registered this the same way he registered every incomplete answer, filing it, moving on, returning to it later. He had not built a $47 billion company by pushing every conversation past the point of usefulness. "I need to disappear for a while," he said instead. "The FBI wants me off the grid while they investigate. My office is compromised. My building is compromised. My home address has been on the internet for 3 years. He paused. "I have no idea how many people in my immediate circle I can trust right now." "That sounds like your problem," Zara said. "It becomes yours too," he said. "The moment whoever planned last night figures out that you're the reason it didn't work." Silence. "They don't know who I am," she said, but there was a question in it. "You were on every camera outside that hotel. Your face is in every piece of footage. The story is already running." He turned his tablet around to show her. The headline read, "Mystery Woman SAVES Billionaire or Involved in Plot." Her image was right there, grainy, pulled from a news camera, but her. Zara stared at it for a long moment. "They're making me a suspect," she said quietly. "Some of them, yes." She looked up at him. "And what are you doing?" "I'm asking you," he said, "to help me find out who did this. You have access to that building that I no longer have. You heard those men. You know details no one else has. And right now," he stopped, said the next part like it cost him something. "Right now you're the only person I'm certain didn't want me dead last night. Like and subscribe if you're already hooked, because this story is just getting started, and trust us. The next part is where everything gets turned upside down." They moved him to a safe house in Decatur, a nondescript house on a nondescript street that the FBI used for exactly these situations. Zara, technically a material witness, was housed 2 blocks over in a unit that was more apartment than protection. She had the address of the safe house anyway within 6 hours of arriving, because Cole Bishop, who had done 3 tours in dangerous places and could read a room faster than most people read sentences, had decided she was not a threat and had quietly made sure she had a way to reach Damien directly. They talked for long stretches. At first it was only the case, what she had heard, what he knew, what the financial records suggested about who had access and motivation. Damien walked her through the architecture of the corruption he had uncovered in language that was direct and unpatronizing, which was not what she had expected from him. "Your company's internal server has a shadow ledger," she said one evening, looking at the documents he'd spread across the kitchen table. "This account here, it's been receiving transfers for 4 years, always just under the reporting threshold, always from Nexus subsidiary accounts." That's what I see too, he said. Someone has been bleeding your acquisition for years before you even bought it. Which means they needed me to buy it, he said, and then needed me not to be alive to open the books. Your partner, she said, not a question. Damien looked at her. What makes you say that? Because he called you at exactly 11:43. I saw the timestamp on your phone when you pulled it out. He called right before I screamed, like someone who wanted to know if you were still outside. She paused. And because no one outside your immediate circle knew your driver's routine well enough to intercept him. Damien was quiet for a very long time. His name is Raymond Holt, he said finally. We started this company together in a basement. We worked 22-hour days for 3 years. I was best man at his wedding. He stopped. I've been trying to find a way around what the evidence says for 3 months. I know, Zara said, and her voice when she said it was not unkind. It was 10 days into the safe house that she told him about her father. She hadn't planned to. They had been going through old corporate records at 2 in the morning, trying to trace the origins of the shadow accounts, and she had followed a thread back through a subsidiary's financial history to a document dated 11 years ago, and there was a name on the authorization line that she knew. She went very still. Damien watched her face change. What is it? She turned the laptop toward him. He looked at the document, he looked at the name, he looked at her. Mensah, he said, same name as. My father, she said, James Mensah. He found this 11 years ago. He tried to report it. He had documents, witnesses, a whole case assembled. She pulled a breath in carefully. Your father's company buried it, pulled the grant funding from my father's community center, froze the accounts, buried him in legal action until he had nothing left. She looked at him directly. He died 14 months after this document was signed. The silence in the room was the kind that changes things. I knew about the corruption cover-up in your father's company, she said. I've known for years. I came to that gala because I wanted to get close enough to you to ask you, to demand you acknowledge what your family's company did to my father. I wasn't there to save you. She put her hands flat on the table. That came after, that was just, she stopped. I couldn't watch someone die when I could stop it, even you. Damien said nothing for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was very quiet. I didn't know, he said. I want to be very clear that I am not telling you that to escape accountability. I'm telling you because it's true, and because you deserve the truth, and because I understand completely if knowing that change is nothing for you. It doesn't change what happened to my father. No, he said, it doesn't. Then what does it change? He looked at her across the table, across the documents that connected their histories in ways neither of them had asked for. That's yours to decide, he said, not mine. What neither of them had fully accounted for was the speed at which the media was constructing an alternate story. By day 12, 3 major outlets were running the narrative that Zara Mensah, a low-wage contract worker with a connection to historical anti-Viridian activism through her father, had been involved in the bombing plot and staged a last-minute rescue to position herself close to Damien Cross. The framing was elaborate, sourced anonymously, and precisely calibrated to discredit the one witness who had seen and heard things that powerful people needed discredited. This came from inside the company, Damien said, watching the coverage on his laptop with a jaw tight enough to cut glass. This level of detail about your background, someone dug this up and fed it to them. I know, Zara said. She was calmer about it than he expected, and then he understood why. She had been prepared in some buried part of herself for exactly this. A woman who had watched the world explain away her father's destruction was not surprised when the world tried to do the same to her. It still hurt, but it didn't shock her. We need to move faster, she said. Whatever we're building, we need to finish it before they finish burying me. Then Zara's phone rang. Her younger brother, Kofi, 24 years old, who she had been trying to reach for 2 weeks, finally called back. He was frightened. She could hear it immediately. "Zara, I need to tell you something. I need to tell you something, and I need you not to be angry." "Tell me." "I've been doing IT contract work for the last 8 months. The company, they told me it was a logistics firm, but I've been seeing some of the data I'm helping move and—" A long pause. "Zara, I think I've been working for the same people who—" "Kofi," she stood up, her voice was steady and precise. "Where are you right now? Tell me exactly where you are." Kofi had not known he was working for Raymond Holt's shadow operation. He was a 24-year-old IT contractor who had needed work and been offered a clean, well-paying job through what appeared to be a legitimate staffing agency. The connection only became visible when Zara put his employment records beside the shadow ledger and saw the overlap. He had been routing data, financial data, the kind that left digital fingerprints, without knowing what it was or who it served. He also, inadvertently, had copies of the routing logs, everything they needed to prove the money's origin and destination. "Can you get those files?" Damien asked him, leaning across the table with an intensity that Kofi visibly found overwhelming. Yeah, I have access. For 2 more days before my contract rolls over and they cycle the credentials." "Then we have 2 days," Damien said. They had one. Because on the morning of the second day, Damien received an invitation, formally, through his still-functioning corporate communications channel, to appear at the Veridian Annual Shareholders Summit. In person. That afternoon, Raymond Holt had called the emergency session himself, framing it as a leadership continuity event following the attempt on Damien's life. A packed room in a glass skyscraper downtown. Every major investor, board member, and media outlet in the city. And Raymond, standing at the podium, preparing to consolidate control of everything Damien had built under the cover of concern for his partner's survival. "He's going to use the room to make the case that I'm too compromised to continue," Damien said. "Announce an emergency leadership transition. Make it look voluntary. By the time I can challenge it legally, the Nexus acquisition closes under his name and those servers get wiped." "Then we have to be there," Zara said. "It could be a trap. He tried to kill me once." "I know," she said. "I'll go in first." Cole looked at both of them for a long moment. "This is the worst plan I've ever been part of," he said. "I've been part of some genuinely terrible plans." "Can you make it work?" Damien asked. Cole sighed like a man accepting his fate. "Give me 4 hours." The shareholders' summit was on the 31st floor of the Veridian Tower. 300 people, cameras from 8 news outlets. Raymond Holt standing at a podium that had Damien's name on the lectern, speaking in the measured, sorrowful tones of a man staging grief. "In light of recent events, and in the interest of protecting our investors, our employees, and the legacy of what we've built." The room's main display screen flickered. Then it filled with numbers. Routing logs, account transfers, dates, amounts, authorization codes, and at the top of the authorization chain, Raymond Holt's digital signature, repeated 47 times over 4 years. Each entry a withdrawal from the shadow account that had been bleeding Nexus clean, while Raymond positioned himself to acquire its shell. The room went silent the way rooms go silent when something undeniable happens in public. Raymond turned to look at the screen. His face moved through several expressions very quickly before settling on something that had given up on looking natural. "Ladies and gentlemen," Zara said from the back of the room, and 300 heads turned. "My name is Zara Mensah. 11 days ago I stopped Damien Cross from getting into a car that was meant to kill him. Tonight I'd like to show you exactly who built that bomb and why." 2 FBI agents who had been standing near the exits for the last 40 minutes moved toward the podium with the unhurried confidence of people who already had everything they needed. Raymond Holt was arrested at the podium. 2 additional executives were taken into custody in the lobby. The Nexus acquisition was frozen pending investigation. By morning, 3 sitting politicians whose names appeared in the routing logs had retained criminal defense attorneys. The story ran everywhere. This time it ran correctly. Damien found Zara standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows afterward, looking out at the Atlanta skyline with her arms folded and her expression unreadable. "It's over," he said. "Part of it," she said. 3 weeks later, he offered her a settlement figure with 8 digits. She looked at the number for a moment, then slid the paper back across the table without touching the pen. "I don't want money," she said. "Then what do you want?" She told him. The Riverside Community Center on the south side of Atlanta, rebuilt, fully funded, sustainably endowed with a technology wing attached, job training, after-school programs, high-speed internet for a neighborhood that had been on the wrong side of the digital divide for 20 years. And on the building, in letters large enough to be read from the street, the Zara Mensah Center for Community Technology. "Your father's name," Damien said. "My father's work," she said, "finished." 8 months later, on a morning that was nothing like rain, Damien Cross stood beside Zara Mensah on a South Atlanta sidewalk, while a crowd of several hundred people, residents, former colleagues, kids in school uniforms, city officials who had gotten very interested in this neighborhood very recently, watched the ribbon get cut on a building that had been a boarded-up memory for a decade. Zara didn't make a speech. She walked through the front doors first, stood in the center of the main hall, looked up at her father's name on the wall, and allowed herself one long breath. Then she turned around and got to work. One woman nobody saw changed everything. One scream in the rain started a chain reaction that brought down a corruption network, saved a life, exposed a betrayal, and rebuilt something that should never have been broken. If this story moved you, hit the like button right now. It helps more people find stories that matter. Subscribe so you never miss what we bring next. And drop a comment below. Tell us, would you have run 6 blocks in the rain to save a stranger? We want to hear from you.